from mouth to source. As a historically Anglican college, Renison has participated with other agents of colonization in perpetuating the harms which an imperial and racializing agenda has created in these lands. With a spirit of repentance and in commitment to justice for the First Nations people of this territory, we pledge ourselves to the work of education in the service of decolonization and justice-making, and offer ourselves to the ongoing work of genuine and lasting relationship in the spirit of the Two-Row Wampum Treaty. Today is something of a red letter day for we at Renison. Not only do we welcome new friends and through an MOU signed earlier this afternoon, new partners from the Dev Sanskriti University, we also mark a Renison milestone in another way. Today, we will hear the inaugural lecture, which officially launches the work of Renison's new Center for Spirituality and Wisdom Practices. This center hopes to create a space for conversation and engagement in matters spiritual for a context. Our context, the Western Canadian context, where traditional religious practice for many has become a non-viable mode of addressing questions of meaning, purpose, and healing. Inviting a wide variety of voices to speak into this space, we hope to open up new pathways for communication and understanding in support of the best becoming of all members of our increasingly beautifully diverse Canadian society. Thank you all for joining us today as we launch this bold new undertaking. I would like to offer particular words of thanks also today to all who have worked so diligently to prepare not only for today's event, but who have supported the imagination of our new center. To members of our external relations team, Carrie, Nancy, and Court, for Greg and Alexis in IT, to Anna in the Center for Community and Professional Education, Lisa in the President's Office, Tim and his food service team, and Henry and his facilities team. Thank you all for your many labors in support of this project. Also, a couple of housekeeping notes for today's event. We are recording the lecture so that you will be able to listen to it again, and those who are unable to join us either online or in person today will be able to hear the lecture after the event. And also, we will have time for questions. Dr. Pandya has kindly agreed to engage in dialogue after he has concluded his address. Nancy and Court will facilitate that question and response period for us. So then, without further ado, it is my deep privilege to introduce today our speaker, Dr. Chinmay Pandya. Dr. Pandya is a spiritual leader and scholar of international renown. He serves as Pro-Vice Chancellor of Dev Sanskriti University in Hardwar, Northern India. Dev Sanskriti University was founded in 2002, offering inclusive educational opportunities across the demographic spectrum of Indian society, work which leads to both undergraduate and graduate degrees in a variety of disciplines, including the terminal degrees of Doctor of Philosophy, Doctor of Literature, and Doctor of Science. The Dev Sanskriti University models its educations on the philosophies of the movement's founder, Sri Ram Sharma, reflecting a commitment to holistic health and well-being. Educated in medicine and psychiatry in both India and the UK, Dr. Pandya served as a specialist treating dementia in older adults for the West London Health Service before returning to India to carry on work begun by his grandfather, noted seer and philosopher referenced above, Sri Ram Sharma. The movement begun by his grandfather, the all-world Gayatri Parivar fraternity, has more than 100 million members, including many in this region of Canada. We are delighted to welcome their representatives today. In demand around the world as a speaker and mentor, Dr. Pandya works to expand the horizons of whole person education through yogic practice, which integrates an inclusive vision of mental, spiritual, and physical well-being as essential to the development of human potential. Among many other responsibilities, Dr. Pandya serves on the governing body of the Indian Council for Cultural Relations, as editor of the Dev Sanskriti International Journal, and as chairman of the South Asian Institute for Peace and Reconciliation. Perhaps more than anything, what I would like to say as I introduce Dr. Pandya this afternoon is that he is, in my experience, a beautiful human being who radiates peace in all that he does. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Pandya to the podium.
Thank you, Professor Fletcher. Good afternoon to everyone and my respectful pranams from India. It's such a delight, privilege and honor to come to Renison University College and on behalf of the entire fraternity of Gayatri Parivar, more than 150 million members that we have got, and the fraternity of Gayatri Parivar here in Canada, I convey our utmost gratitude to Professor Fletcher for so kindly hosting us and the entire team of Renison for not only hosting us, but making this experience most generous and hospitable to all of us. The theme that we have got for this afternoon's presentation, called Human Excellence, had been the center of Indian wisdom tradition for a very long period of time. And the significance of today's discussion becomes even much more important in the current times, because we are passing through one of the most exceptional times in the history of mankind. Last 2 years, we have witnessed the global pandemic, and then we are also passing through a huge geopolitical shift in the European segment. So in such times of pain and sorrow and stress and strife and anguish, I believe that these kind of efforts, which allow people to connect with the deeper purpose of the human life, they prove to be more important and of colossal significance than ever before. When entire humanity comes under the threat, then humanity alone has the power to rise above it. And I think today's effort is actually in that direction. The wisdom of Indian tradition, it's so hard to actually bring that into one single kind of talk, but we will make an attempt. We'll make an attempt, but to make an attempt, I think it would be important if I ask everyone to think about a time like 2400 years ago, when Patanjali was writing the Yoga Sutra, the founding philosophy of yoga in India, and Charak was writing the Ayurveda, the medicinal system of India, and Kautilya was writing the Arthashastra, the foundation of economy in India. That time alone, India had 32 different schools of philosophy. We had Yoga, Sankhya, Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Darshan, Dvait, Advait, Visishtadvait, Veda Ved. There were so many different schools of philosophy. So naturally, a question comes that what exactly these people were searching for? What was the thing that everyone was attracted to find the answer of? And I think if you go deeper into those scriptures, what you would find that almost every single school of philosophy that came from the Indian subcontinent at that period of time, they were looking for one answer, looking for the answer of the purpose of the human existence, whether it was yoga in the terms of samadhi, or Vedanta in terms of the moksha, liberation, eternal freedom, or any other branch that emerged from India. The question was the same and simple, that are we here by default, or is there a blessing behind it? Are we here because a chemical reaction has taken place that made us to be here? Or there is a reason for our existence to be here? There comes a very beautiful story, which is a story I really enjoy in the Upanishads, which are the founding scriptures of India. And the story of a young boy called Shvetaketu. And Shvetaketu, he topped one of the universities of India called Takshashila, established 4,000 years ago. And he came home full of ego and pride that he knows everything. And then his guru, his master, realized that he has developed ahankar, ego. So he asked him, he said that now when you think that you know everything, have you seen God? And although he was knowledgeable, he was also honest about it. He said, no, I can cite every verse about it, but I have no experience of meeting God. He said, do you want to see him? Do you want to meet him? He said, yes. So his guru got a glass of water and some sugar cubes, and he mixed them inside the water. He said, where is the sugar now? And Shvetketu said, you mixed in front of me. I saw it, but I cannot see it now. He said, how would you know that it is inside? He said, the only way to know that is by tasting the water. Sweetness of the water would tell me that it is inside. So his guru said, same is with the God. He's mixed in the air, Vayu, and in the prana, inside you. Neither you can see the Vayu, air, nor you can see the prana, but you cannot survive without them. He said, same is with the divinity. Divinity is not a science of expression, he said, it's a science of experience. Go deep within you, discover him. Tattvamasi, that divine is inside you. Soham, it is also inside me. And moment Shvetketu realized, he famously uttered, which is called as the Mahavakya of Upanishad, the greatest statement of Upanishad. He said, Aham Brahmasmi, I am the divine consciousness. And that idea that everyone is the mirror of the God, everyone has got the divine possibility and potential within themselves, had been the foundation of the Indian wisdom tradition, that no one, wherever they are born, whatever their background is, it makes no difference. Everyone is the same mirror image of the divinity. And we all have the possibility to manifest that. And the whole journey of the spiritual tradition of India is to manifest that hidden but divine possibilities that we carry inside ourselves. But human lives are gifted. And before we can realize, sometimes it becomes too late to understand it, that how that possibility, how that opportunity came to our door, but we miss to take advantage of that opportunity. Gurudev has written a very wonderful story in a book called Pragya Purana. And his story of a man, he lived next to a village, a river flew from there. And next to the river, there were thousands, millions and millions of stones. And it was said that one of the stone that is lying there is the stone of Paras. And Paras is a mythological stone. You touch it with any metal, that metal would turn into gold. So he wanted to have it. He said, I should have that stone. But how would you have? They all look the same. So he made a habit. He made a routine that, every morning I will walk with iron powder in my left hand, pick up the stone, touch it here. This turns into gold, fine. If not, then I will throw the stone back into the water, so I won't have to pick up the same stone again and again. One day was gone, a week was gone. After a week, till the week, he could remember, why I'm picking up the stone, why I'm touching it here, why I'm throwing back. Then it became a routine. Routine of picking up the stone, touching it here, throwing back into the water. So a week was gone, a month was gone, a year was gone, 10 years were gone, 20 years were gone. 20 years later, one day he picked up the stone, touched it here, threw back into the water. 200 meters later, he looked at the powder. It turned into gold. Stone is gone. Same is with the human life. We can turn it into anything, a meaningful journey, whichever way we see it. It has the possibility, it has the potential, it has the quality of turning our life into gold. Living a life where our lives are not only there to increase the population of the planet, but to leave a meaningful legacy. And that's the idea, that how would we make that as the pursuit of our life? How we can make it a life of purpose and motive and agenda, and something that we could be proud of, and the people coming after us would be able to remember that as a divine possibility. And that journey is the journey of the human excellence. So one reason, of course, to create this presentation had been to make a contemporary understanding of what's been talked about long time ago, that how we can make sense of that now. What can we do different to make our lives lives of meaning, purpose, and beauty. But other reason had been very personal. I was working in a hospital in London called Charing Cross Hospital, and I had a boy presenting to our clinic middle of the night, 27-year-old boy. He had an interesting journey. He was one of the most academically bright individual, got the wonderful degree from University of Cambridge. His father was one of the richest men of London. But he unfortunately developed a habit to take cocaine. So he was taking cocaine. And if somebody has been taking cocaine for a long period of time, especially if you are snorting it, then you develop a peculiar kind of hallucination. It's called Lilliputian hallucination. It comes from the word Lilliput, like Gulliver in Lilliput. So they see a small people, imaginary people who are not there, crawling all over the body. They are not there. So he was seeing them. And he also developed diabetes because of taking the other steroids and other such things. So he was using the insulin syringe to dig these imaginary people out. So you could, like the night he came to see us, practically you could see the bones in the body, dreadful condition. It took like 3 months to make this kid healthy and better. But these 3 months, they were the most awful months. He was fighting all the time, angry all the time, aggressive, violent all the time. So one day we were having conversation and I said, why are you so angry all the time? And he said, I'm not angry with you guys. I'm angry with my father. So I said, why is that? He said, imagine a normal person, a normal person is looking for something in their life. They are looking for the next podium. We go for education because we can get decent occupation, and then occupation, relationship, settling for family and other such thing. He said, I was like 18 years old when I got the Ferraris in gift and then choppers in gift. And so no place to go up, but to go down because could not prove his own identity. Started to take the cocaine. So I said, listen, your father may not be responsible for it because it was not his intention to destroy your life. He did whatever he thought was the best thing to do for you. But even if you think that your father is responsible for it, the question you should ask that whose life it is. Are you going to live your life blaming your father for it? Are you going to take the accountability for it? That's it. And we did not see him again. And couple of years later, he wrote a card from South Africa. He said that night we had the conversation and it was really touching my heart. And I went to a world tour and went to many places. And he went to a place in India that professor would recognize. It's called Bastar. It's the remotest part of India. And there he went and it's a mostly tribal area. And when he went there, he saw a farmer. And this farmer had hardly anything to feed himself, had 4 children. But they were so happy together. They were enjoying their meal together. They even invited him to join him for the dinner. So he asked his interpreter to ask him, he said, ask him that how come he's so happy, he's got nothing. And farmer replied that, who told him I have got nothing? He said, tell him I have got family. And this boy wrote to me, he said, moment I heard that, I took the next flight back to England. He said, I went and I hugged my father and we both cried non-stop for 4 hours. He said, first time I realized that life is not supposed to be pain, but a reason for celebration. I was carrying it like a burden. And he said, we were living in the same house, under the same roof, but like strangers. Now I could discover that there is a reason to find the happiness. And then he asked a question. He said, how could we make life a source of happiness? We make life a source of happiness if we have got a purpose. If there is purpose, if there is a reason to live, every second becomes an act of celebration. Without it, we're carrying it like a burden with no real sense and purpose, where we are going, where we are heading, and for what. So this brief presentation is meant with that purpose. What was talked about long time ago, how we can make sense of that in the concurrent setting. So this presentation would go through three small kind of stages. One is to understand the human life from the eyes of the people who lived their life with a meaning and purpose. That what did they say about the human life? And second is that on that parameter, on that benchmark, what kind of life we are living. And if we are not living, and when I say we means humanity, altogether mankind. And if we are not doing something right, then what do we need to do different to make it meaningful? So I start with the sayings of the great people. And when I say the great people, a lot of reference would come from India, not because great people are only in India, they're everywhere, but because the presentation has been created in India, it would make more sense to actually cite them. I start with the saying of a remarkable man from India who had a strong connection with Canada also, Swami Vivekananda. When he was only 32 years old and was one of the first Vedantic scholars who came from India and traveled all the way in US and left a lasting legacy. But he first actually arrived in Canada, and then from Vancouver to Winnipeg, and Winnipeg, then he went to Chicago. So the first actually approach of Vivekananda to the Northern America was through Canada. And he said many great things and influenced the entire, the genre of that time. But one of the things that he said in the Chennai address was so remarkable. He said, all the power in the universe is already ours. Ours means human being. It is we who have put our hands before our eyes and cry that it is dark. The possibility is there. That kind of opportunity is there. But if we miss it, we cannot blame somebody else for it. If we draw the curtain, switch off the lights, close all the doors here, it becomes dark, and then complain that there is no sunlight. And it's not the fault of the sun. He is there. It's just we are not looking at that direction. It's like every single human being, they are gifted with possibility. But if we miss that, then it becomes hard to find the compass of our life. The person in India who wrote one of the most famous Sanskrit textbook, his name was Varadaraj. And Varada means in Sanskrit would means great, but also means ox. He was not called Varad because he was great. He was called Varadaraj because his mind was like an ox. Teachers hated him, parents shunned him. Nobody wanted to sit next to him. And they said, go, and go outside. We don't want you here. And he was so feeling guilty about himself. One day he left the house and he went to a place where he saw an ant trying to lift a piece of sugar. And it was 10 times, 20 times bigger than him. It took him, the ant, 30 times before it could lift it up. And Varadaraj thought that if ant could have it, then why can't I do something about it? He returned back, started to study, and became one of the most famous scholars of India. If you are doing your master's in Sanskrit, then that cannot be completed without reading the compendium of the Varadaraj. So Varadaraj became Varadaraj because of that smaller incident. Everyone has the possibility. Abraham Lincoln, failed 13 times, and then 15 times he became one of the most famous presidents of US. It's just that everyone passes through these challenging and tough times, but we always have the possibility to change the steer our driving seat to the direction where we would like to take it. That's the beauty of the human life, that we have got the possibility in the most darker times of our life to take it to the right direction. And that had been one of the center call of the Indian wisdom tradition, that human beings have got the capability and possibility more than anyone else to do anything that they would wish to do. One of the famous authors of Japan who got the Nobel Prize in 2010, he got the Nobel Prize of Literature and because of this 5-line poem, which I really like. He said that every morning I look at the trees and I see that birds are sitting there. While they can go anywhere, they are still sitting on the same branches. Then I look at myself. We can do whatever we would wish to do, but somehow our routines, they start to control ourselves, and we keep repeating ourselves in the same manner every day, every night. It becomes a habit before we realize. There is a very beautiful story written in Vedanta. It's a story of a lioness, and this lioness was pregnant. She was about to hunt. A hunter came and shot the lioness, so she died. But before dying, she gave birth to a lion cub. And this lion cub had no, parents, was without anyone to look after. So he was wandering. There was a herd of deers who, out of compassion, started to look after the lion cub. This lion cub forgot that he was a lion. He started to believe that he's a deer. One day, a big lion came and roared. All the deers started to run. This lion also started to run. So big lion thought that deers are running, that's fine. Why the hell this lion is running? So he said, where are you going? He said, no, no, leave me alone. I'm a deer. He said, no, no, you are not a deer. You are a lion. He said, no, no, I'm a deer. So he took him to the water. He said, look, is there a difference between you and me? And moment he looked and realized that he and the gentleman next to him are the same. His roar came back. He became lion. For a lion to remember that he's a lion, you need another lion. For us to remember that we are divine beings, we need divine beings. When people like Vivekananda and Gurudev and Christ, they come, they are here to remind us that we have the same possibility. We have the same possibility where we can live our life with a divine purpose, agenda, and motive. And this is the beauty of the human life. Beauty of the human life is that it has got range of possibility. It has the possibility where the worst of the mankind can come through it. People with very primal passions, very animalistic desires, you can see them coming from the human beings. And you also see the people who have got such a beautiful, divine presence with them, that you meet them and you feel that you have been next to the God. It's just like, that kind of spectrum is with the human life, where we have got people ranging from very, very shallow pursuits of life to something where they have even forgotten about themselves. Their life has become for the entire humanity and community. And that kind of possibility lies with us. There is a interesting story of a saint in India who was dying, and disciples asked him, they said that, do you want to give a message to us? He said, yeah. He said, I will tell you the summary of my life. They said, yes. He said, there are 2 dogs living inside me. Everyone thought what he's talking about. He said, there are 2 dogs living inside me. One is asking for peace and harmony, and another is looking for struggle and chaos. They both are fighting. He said, that dog wins to whom you feed. We want the harmony, we want the compassion, we want the humanity in our life, we will find it. We don't want it, we will find it. It's just like, the possibility lies with the human beings, that whichever direction we would like to take, we can take it. And that's why life to us is a journey from B to the D. B is birth, D is death. Both are not in our hands. What is left in the middle is in our hands. C are the choices. We always have the choice to make the right decision in our life. We always have this possibility, no matter how difficult and dark times we have got, we can always make the right decision. There comes this very interesting story of a saint trying to help a drowning scorpion. So people were passing by, and every time he was trying to save the scorpion was biting him. So one person looked at it and he said, why you are even trying? It's his nature to bite. And saint said that it may be his nature to bite, but it's my nature to save. We always have this choice of doing the right thing to the people. If we can do the right thing to everyone, then world would be a very different place. If everyone works along the principles of humanity, trying to help and save other mankind, what other heaven we have to look for? It's right here. People, if they have a concept of humanity connecting them, if they have got a concept of living for the right reasons and right beliefs, then world becomes different. And normally, people think that only privileged individuals can think like that. But Aurobindo said, no, everyone everyone has got this possibility in them where, like, if it is given the right direction, it has been given a chance to, perfect itself, then everyone can find this excellence within themselves. The most famous epic of India, equivalent to Homer and like Homer's Euclid, is called Mahabharat. Mahabharat is the story of like 7,000 years of India. It has got so many volumes that if you place all of them, then from where I am standing to the door, everything would be with Mahabharat. So like in Mahabharat, there is a battle, and battle is between two sets of brothers. One are called Kauravas, another are called Pandavas. They were both brothers. They went to the same school, were taught by the same teacher. But one was doing everything right and another was doing everything wrong. So one of the uncle had a question. He said, I am confused. He asked to the, the bad one, Duryodhan. He said, how come your brother is doing everything right and you are doing everything wrong? How come he's always following the path of dharma and you are always following the path of adharma? And Duryodhan said, Jana pi dharmam nachame pravritte. I know what is dharma, I know what is right. I won't do it. Jana pi adharmam nachame nivritte. I know what is wrong. I won't leave it. Keno pi deven hriday sthitena yatha niyuktosmi tatha karmi. It's like somebody is sitting inside me, and wherever it appoints me, I feel obliged to do it. So people know what is right and wrong. It's just people take the wrong path because it's easier one to take. People don't need too much of information. They need the determination. If the determination is there to walk on the right path, then like Gurudev said, there would be rise of divinity in each single human being and descent of heaven on earth. Like, if everyone would live their life with the right principles, 4 principles he talked about. He said solidarity, humanity, equality, and compassion. If these 4 things are there, then there is no other. Heaven we have to look for. It's right here. When people can connect with themselves like the same family member, then that kind of divinity that is there in each and every individual can be manifested. So from the eyes of great people, from any religion and from any background, one common message that we see is that human life has been bestowed upon with this kind of possibility, where if taken the right path, then we can leave a legacy which is so divine, full of sacred values, with brightest direction possible, where we are remembered for the legacy that we create. And that kind of possibility is there in each and every individual, each and every soul. But when we look around, then we find many problems, and I'm not going to talk about all the problems, but some of them. And first one to think about is the problem of the environment. And of course, everyone knows that environment is in a drastic condition. I don't think more lectures are needed to tell people about it. But this equation is interesting to remember. Earth is 4.6 billion years old. And if we scale that to 46 years, if we bring that to a scale of 46 years, then we have been here for 4 hours. The human beings have arrived here on this planet only 4 hours ago from that scale. Literally, if you make a scale, a clock from the time of conception till now, then it's 13.6 billion years like history. If you bring that to a 24-hour clock, then we would arrive 1 minute and 17 seconds before the midnight. So our history in the history of the planet is very little. So we arrived here 4 hours ago, and our industrialization, our globalization is started 1 minute ago. And in these 250 years, the 50% of world's forests have been destroyed. Everything from that has taken millions and millions of years in making, that was gone and literally last 250 years. And many things are disappearing right in front of us, from rivers to the species and other such things. And I'm not sharing it so that common man could be blamed. I'm saying it because, the people, I think, I'm everywhere. I have gone to the villages of India. I was recently, few months ago in a village of India, where in Gayatri Parivar, we have a tradition that if somebody has got their birthday celebration, then we gift them the tree to plant it. So she was gifted a tree and she never had a children. So the person who was like, moderating the event, he said to her, she was 67 years old, 10 years ago. And he said to her that, listen, this is your son, like, you can have it. And this struck to her heart so deeply that she asked all the ladies of the village and she asked them to let's plant like, trees. And they managed to plant recently 1 million trees in the last 12 years. So like, 12 years, this single woman that inspired like more than 10,000 women in the area to do nothing but to plant trees every day, every possible opportunity. So they said we would celebrate all the festivals of India, which we have got plenty, like, all the festivals of India by doing nothing but planting trees. And they managed to make a revolution. They were recently like, awarded by the highest award of the Indian government. What I'm trying to say that, people who are walking on the streets, they're probably more conscientious than anyone else. But somehow the people sitting on the top, they seem to not notice it. Like, I was invited to an event where we had many Nobel Prize winners sitting there. And the reason actually to be there was that question that they were discussing is that how to mine the moon. Like, we are here on holiday and now we can go and destroy the other planet. It's like, sometimes so ironic that, you tell people that you plant the trees and you get the oxygen and people may not do it. But you tell them that you plant the trees and you get the free Wi-Fi signal, probably people would do it. It's just the priorities have changed, like, because this progress and development has taken place. And this whole, like, the debacle that we have got of environment, it has taken place because of the reason we wanted to have progress, and we are not anti to progress. I think that's very important. Without progress and development, I won't be here. I won't be talking to you, and all the people who are listening through this Zoom talk, they won't be able to listen to it. So I think that is very much needed. I'm not anti to it. What I'm saying is that how we are handling the technology is the question. Question is not that whether technology is needed or not needed. That is very much needed. What is important to, like, question is that how we are handling the technology. There was a very interesting story of Acharya Shankar, like, founder of Vedantic philosophy in India. He was going one day and he saw a farmer, like, taking a buffalo for a stroll. So he said to his disciples, he said, is farmer taking the buffalo or buffalo taking the farmer? They say, of course, farmer is taking the buffalo. So he went ahead and released the rope. Now, buffalo was running and farmer was running behind him. They said, now who is taking whom? And it's the same situation with mankind in some ways. Like, we invented the technology so that our lives could be easier. But now everyone's life is so much dependent upon it. Like, people don't even remember the home address and the telephone of their own without, like, Googling it or checking it on their phone. So many things, like, good have happened with the technology, but some things that came along with it. Number one, that I believe is the challenge, is that it made the lives of the people more solitary and lonely than before. Earlier times we had, like, people, they could go out, socialize a little. But since the time, like, everything has come under the phone, your relationships are there, your shopping is there, your banking is there. People have become more and more alone in their approach. There was a joke, like, in London, they started to offer a program for people, and they started it as a satire, like, that how to talk to normal people, because everyone is chatting. So they said how to talk to normal people, and 40 people applied for it. So, like, the thing is that we are making, like, people's lives so alone in some ways, that slowly the life has become so much engaged into the artificial and like, pseudo world, that the real connections are disappearing. People go to the restaurants together, but everyone's phone is out. Like, it's the issue is that how we can connect from human to human. It's slowly disappearing, if not gone. Second thing is that, it's making the lives of the people more impatient. Remember the days like, when you would write a letter and it would reach and people would patiently wait for an answer to arrive. Now it's gone. And it has reached to the other person's phone and you can see the two ticks and they suddenly turn into blue and then why is not answering? Like, people's level of patience, why we see the road rage, why we see the other things happening is because with the fast pace of information, people also demand the answers like, of the life's issues very fast. And they may not be provided that fast. So I think one of the issues is that as fast as the technology is advancing, life takes its own like, path. It takes time to solve the issues. And we may laugh about it, but real things are actually happening around us. In Florida, I read 6 or 7 years ago, one lady, she killed her boyfriend because he was 2 minutes late liking her picture on the Facebook. So like, it's the people's level of patience. They are slowly going. And third thing that is happening is that attention level is going because we are bombarded with the information. Mind does not have enough time to process it. In Cambridge, they did a piece of research like maybe 40 years ago of checking the average level of attention of the people. So if you take a group of 40 people like here, then everyone's like attention level would be different. One will be able to pay more attention to certain thing as compared to other. What they found that average level of attention span was 22 minutes. That's why the like, the TV serials, they used to be 22 minutes long. So that's why you get like, 8 minutes of advertisement and 22 minutes of content. So they did it. Now, when they repeated the same experiment, it's down to 18 seconds. So within 18 seconds, people's attention span start to dither. Like, they go to listen to an opera, the phones are out. You can barely pay an attention to it. You are listening to Tchaikovsky or like, or Bach or Mozart, but then people are checking their phones all the time. Like, what is happening, what's new. And there is no significant development taking place. It's not like, I became the Prime Minister of India and I have to decide about nuclear arsenal. It's just like, it's just some silly piece of information that I won't even pay attention to. And I would like, forward it without even reading it sometimes. But people are distracted all the time. So one thing that is happening is that it's making people more impatient. It's decreasing the attention span of the people. It's making people much more living in the artificial world. Like, when Armstrong went to the moon, Apollo 11, they got only 6 photographs. Now people are going to the toilet and taking like 200 photographs. It's just the people's like, priorities have changed. And this, I really like that people were created to be loved. We had relationships so that we can love each other. We can share. The strength of the humanity is in the humanity itself. I alone cannot fight with an elephant, but when 100 people are there, it gives us the strength to fight with every possible threat that comes to the humanity. That's the strength of humanity. So people were there so that we can love each other. Things were there so that we can use them. And the reason it started to go haywire is because people are loving the things and manipulating the relationships. It's just like, it went in the wrong direction. And then we are ironically living in a world where deleting history has become more important than creating it. And this is the reality of the world. We have got bigger houses than before, but somehow families are gone. And we have got more education than before, but common sense is going. And we have got better medicine, better hospitals, better surgeries, but endurance and health is gone. We have reached to the moon on one hand, but people struggle to know their neighbors. And then we have more income, more money, but peace of mind is gone. There comes a story of a king in India who wanted to conquer the entire world. He conquered the half of it. And then his guru said, why are you doing it? He said, I want to conquer the entire world. He said, imagine you have done it, what you would do. He said, I would have a huge mansion. And then he said, lots of servants. And then he said, lots of like, money and everything. He said, imagine you have done everything possible. what you would do. He said, what kind of question is that? I would relax and enjoy. So Guru said that that's what I'm doing right now. Why do you have to conquer the world to do it? It's just to find the peace of the mind. We just have to go within ourselves. And then we have got better knowledge, but the wisdom that we are searching for is missing. And the worst of all, we have populated the earth, but humanity seems to be struggling. So this unfortunately becomes the race. People are running after it, but before they realize it becomes too late. Like Gorky has written a famous story called 6 Feet Underground. It's a story of a man who heard that in Siberia they are giving land for free. So he went there. He said, are you giving land for free? And the elder of the village said, absolutely free. He said, what do I have to do to get it? They said, nothing. Come tomorrow morning, the sun would rise. We will give you 4 flags. You run as much as you can run in the north, run. Plant one. East another one, west another one, south we are standing. Whatever you cover belongs to you. He said, that's it. And that's it. How come no one has won it so far? He said, oh, run tomorrow morning, you will know. So next morning came, moment sun, rose, they gave him 4 flags. He started to run. More he ran, more greedy he became. More he thought this all belongs to me. So he thought that why I'm running with the food. So he threw his tiffin. He said, I can go far without food. One day I'm supposed to run without food. Who cares? I can go. Water, he got rid of the water. Then he thought I can go even further with with all these winter clothes, I cannot go far. So he started to run naked. 2 o'clock, he remembered that I was supposed to plant the flag. He planted one, then another one, then another one. And Gorky has written that sun was setting and this man was running in Siberia without food, without water, without clothes. Energy was going. 6 feet before the finish line, he collapsed. Then he regained the consciousness and he saw that moon was already halfway and the village already gathered there. An elder of the village started to clap. He said, you came too far. He said, other became so greedy they never returned. They are still planting the flags. So he said, what would you do with this piece of land that's left between my fingertips and this finish line? Thought maybe they will give the discount. So the elder of the village said that we are waiting for you to die. We will dig your grave. That's the only land you take, 6 feet underground. So people are running. Life becomes a race. And we forget that the real reason for life to be there is to find the purpose in it. When we look at the life of the enlightened beings, living for humanity, living for others, living for a purpose, living for compassion, living for a cause that would give direction to them and to others. And when we see the life around us, they are two different things. Our inner aspirations and the societal expectations, they do not seem to align well with each other, because the ideas of perfection that society is presenting to the community, from physical beauty standards to psychological satisfaction to social success, they give nothing but more disillusionment to the people. People would be doomed to live with the dissatisfaction and as and oblivious to what they already have. So it's the idea of the excellence that Gurudev said comes from 4 things. He said, first thing is to find the purpose in the life. And in purpose, he said that without purpose, our lives are like a pendulum, moving a lot, but not reaching to a destination. Just because I'm busy does not mean that I have found the purpose. Just because I have got no time to think about even for myself does not mean that I have got a reason to live. It's just people confuse being heavily occupied as having a divine objective in the life. It does not come from what we do, but why we do it. Or having a purpose, it does not mean that I have to create a university and institution. Having a purpose would mean that even finding the right thing to do in the smallest, things of the life. And sometimes people think that how can we have the purpose? We are too late, or we are too young, or we don't have the money to do it. So selected some examples of the common people who had the purpose and they lived their life with greatest purpose. The person on the left hand side that you see here, uh, his name is James Harrison. He was given the highest award that any civilian could receive in Australia, Victoria Order of Merit. Then he was given the knighthood in England. Then he was given the highest award a French government could confer to anyone. And he's only a bricklayer. He had no education. He was living a very simple life. What did he do so special to receive such a big accolade, and not once but 3 times? The story is that he was 13 years old, was going on a bike. He was hit by a truck and he was lying in a pool of blood. He was taken to the ICU, intensive care, and 14 people donated blood to save his life. So when he came out of the hospital, he said, I was saved because so many people donated blood to save my life. So first thing I would do when I would turn 18, which is the legal age to donate blood, is that I would donate blood and I will give it to 14 people. That's what he thought. So he turned 18. He went to the hospital. And if you are giving your blood, donating blood, then they check your blood that it is safe enough to be given to other person. So they checked it and they found that his blood had a unusual plasma, which if given to those who babies those babies whose mother and father have got mismatching blood groups, they call it rhesus incompatibility in medical terms, then their lives could be saved. Sometimes the blood groups are different and mother and father they have. So these kids, they have got hereditary spherocytosis. Their red blood cells are so small that they would not survive. So they need transfusion again and again. And his blood had a protein, which if given to those babies, then their life could be saved. So from the age of 18 to 71, when this photograph was taken, this one single man, he donated 1,000 liters of blood plasma, saving lives of 2 million babies. His blood was sent to 34 different countries. He was stopped only at the age of 81, which is the last age where one could donate blood. And by that time, he had already given 1,271 units of blood plasma. So our purpose does not have to be big. It has to be the right one. If we have the right purpose, if we have the genuinely good purpose to help other person, we can leave an impact. This boy next to him, his name is Carl, must be above 20 now. And the story is from 2008. He got like $1,000 in this scavenger hunt. Mother said, what do you want? Like pair of Jordans, you want to go to Disneyland? I said, no, the girl living next door, Carla, she has got leukemia. Can I give it to her? And he phoned the mother, who's living in Chicago at that time. So he phoned the mother of this girl. And mother started to cry. She said, I'm not going to take money from an 8-year-old boy. But she told her story to Chicago Tribune. When the story was published, money was collected to save the lives of 200 babies. It was before the times of social media. To save the lives of 200 babies on the day one. So anyone can have a purpose. An 8-year-old boy can have a purpose. A 71-year-old man can have a purpose. And then we have got this another one. Thank you, Nancy. Her name, that the lady you are seeing on the screen, her name is Suhasini Mistry. As you can see, she's a vegetable vendor coming from a very small village in India called Medinipur. That's in West Bengal. So she was 21 years old. Her husband contracted an infection and they were going from one hospital to another. By the time he could receive the right medical attention, it was too late. So she lost her husband, became a widow at the age of 21. And that time she had no education, had 4 mouths to feed. And the youngest one was 3 months old. And she said, if there was a hospital in my village, I could have saved my husband. So she said, I will open a hospital. And whosoever she told this story, everyone laughed. They said, how can you open a hospital? You can barely find a food for the evening. But she said, no, I will open a hospital. Long story short, one of her son, Ajay, became a renowned doctor in India. He was given a position in one of the best, hospitals of India, and he left it. He left it to go back to the village and help the mother. So the professors and peers and colleagues and friends, everyone thought that this guy coming from such a humble background, how can, he leave such a decent job? So they went to the village to see what actually prompted him to leave it. And when they went there and spoke to the lady, Suhasini Mistry, his mother, then they started to cry. 37 years were gone. This lady had saved nothing apart from saving whatever she had for the hospital in the village. Never purchased a pair of clothes for herself, nothing for the children. Every single penny that she was saving was to open a hospital in the village. And all she could save was 22,000 rupees, probably equivalent to 350 Canadian dollars. More or less, I don't know. But not a significant amount of money. You can't open a hospital with that amount. But when people heard the story, one person donated the land. Take it, make a hospital for free. Builder said that we will build it for free. Electrician said we will fit it for free. Plumber said we will fit it for free. Doctor said we will treat it for free. And pharmacist decided to give the medicines for free. So she opened a hospital called Humanity Hospital. From poor for poor. 10 years ago, she was given the highest civilian award that any Indian could receive 3 years ago. So anyone can have a purpose. From James Harrison to Suhasini Mistry, these are the stories of the people who found the purpose of their life. And after having the purpose, second thing that we need, unfortunately we can't read, it says in Hindi as the Utsarga. Utsarga means compassion. And there is a very beautiful aphorism written by Gurudev. And he said that as human beings, if we have no other purpose, then we should select the humanity. That is our purpose. If we live only for ourselves, then we are wasting the opportunity. He said, the life is there so that we can leave a legacy for other people. The example that you see is of a famous king in India called Rantidev. There was a drought in the kingdom. So people said that if you do a fast of 48 days without food and water, there would be rain. So he did it for 48 days. And legend is that after, it started to rain, he sat with 4 chapatis, roti, and with the water to eat. One person came and he said, I haven't had food for a long period of time. So king decided to give the first bread to him. Another person came, head of the cemetery. He said, I haven't eaten for a long period of time. Give to him second bread. He said, I have got 4 dogs. They also haven't eaten. So he gave the remaining 2 breads, 4 pieces, 1 to each. He said, I will drink the water. He could have easily said no. After 48 days, he was eating. But he said, no, if I can help others, I should. So he was about to drink the water. One person came. He said, can I have the water? He said, yeah, take it. That person appeared as the head of the heaven. And he said that you have done so many good deeds that now you can be taken straight like this to the heaven. So Rantidev famously asked, he said, what do I get in heaven? They said, there are so many good things. He listed it. List goes for 1.5 pages. And Rantidev said that, is there a possibility to help those who are suffering? They said, no. Once your deeds are over, you will come back. So he said, Nattoham kame rajyam na bhogyam na punarbhavam. Kamaye dukh taptanam pranenam artana ashnam. Neither I want a seat in heaven, nor I want another life. I also don't want to be the king. The only thing that I want, if you want to give me something, leave me here. Until the last man who is suffering, I would like to stay so that I can give him the happiness. That's the heaven for me. So I think the story is, or the meaning is, that if we can do something for those who are suffering, then our purpose becomes much more meaningful. These are the examples. This boy on the left-hand side, born in Malaysia. Both of his, he was born blind, congenital cataract he had, and both of his parents were only 21 years old. They each decided to give him 1 live eye. They said, whatever we wanted to see, we have seen. At least he should have a future. Compassion. Then we have got these two blind men, they were really struggling to open the tap of the water. There was a monkey on the tree. When he saw them struggling, he came to open the tap of the water. So if animals have it, then surely we should have more. One is the purpose, then the compassion, then comes the commitment. And I'm sure everyone would know Terry Fox here. The person with one leg, after developing osteosarcoma, he decided to run for those people who could not afford to have the health care for themselves. And he ran 143 days non-stop, covering 5,373 kilometers. We are literally sitting in England with that much, he covered. And he collected 300 million Canadian dollar that created the first cancer research. So when it comes down to commitment, anyone can have it. People take the good pledge, but they struggle to stick to it. So to have the purpose, to have the compassion, then to have commitment, and then I have got a video clip to share with you.
My name is Jessica Cox, and I live in Tucson, Arizona. I'm a motivational speaker. I've traveled to 17 different countries. My situation of being born without arms requires a lot of creativity. I would see all the kids around me climbing up the monkey bars or climbing up the slide, and for me, I felt somewhat frustrated because I was prevented from that. I wanted to run up and climb up that slide just like all the other kids. Sometimes I would vision flying over the playground and being Superwoman. I realized that I needed to adapt to the way everyone else did things. And it wasn't about catering to my needs or my special situation, but it was more about me adapting and being creative and coming up with ways of using my feet or using other methods to become independent. Put my pants onto the hook, then I just step into the pants like this, and I wiggle my way into my pants. I've heard the saying a number of times that, life is 10% what happens to you, 90% of how you respond to it. So that's why I fell in love with psychology. Psychology fascinated me in that sense that it really did credit a lot to how we thought. It was a 3-year process to become a pilot. I had to find a specific airplane, and it has 2 less controls than most standard airplanes. And so therefore I can actually keep my right foot on the yoke, my left foot on the throttle. The most incredible, most empowering experience I've ever had. It's that feeling of being free, of being in the sky, and just that incredible feeling of being up there. What I enjoy is not really knowing where I'm going to be next. In the next 4 months, I'm going to be in 4 different countries. And I remember promising myself I would never again wear those fake, heavy, prosthetic arms. Here's our flight. We will go out to the different areas of Ethiopia, visit with the families of children with disabilities, and help them overcome their own difference as well, and bring that confidence that I had to develop over the years and help share that with them. The achievement that I am most proud of, I think, is maturing from someone who was angry and upset about being differently abled, and being someone who was different, to now being able to celebrate that and use it as an opportunity to give hope and inspiration to other people.
I think the reason behind sharing that clip is very obvious, is that, like Gurdev said, he wrote a wonderful book called Nobody Can Change the Circumstances, but we can change the mindset. It's like, possible for people to change the way they look at the situation. And whenever people have the purpose and they have got the commitment and determination, they usually struggle to see that how much they are capable of. We have the story of Terry Fox, then we have the story of Jessica, who is the first armless pilot in the world and did remarkably well. Then we have got another one to share with you, that in case one had nothing.
I wasn't ready. I have no arms and no legs, but I'm very thankful that I have my little chicken drumstick here. People freak out when they see me for the first time. It's so cool. I was at a water slide all by myself. Everyone obviously at the bottom of the slide is looking up and waiting for other people to come down, and here I come and they're freaking out. They're like, like this. And I was so tempted to look at myself and go, what happened? And there were times where I sort of looked at my life and thinking, well, I can't do this and I can't do that. And you keep on concentrating on the things that you wish you had or the things that you wish you didn't have. And you sort of forget what you do have. And there's no point, I believe, in my life where I wish I had arms and legs, I wish I had arms and legs, I wish I had arms and legs, because wishing won't help. But what I've seen in life are just a couple key principles, and the first thing that I've seen is to be thankful. It's hard to be thankful, man. I tell you, when I was 8 years old, I sort of summed up my life and thought, I'm never going to get married. I'm not going to have a job. I'm not going to have a life of purpose. What kind of a husband am I going to be if I can't even hold my wife's hand? It's a lie to think that you're not good enough. It's a lie to think that you're not worth anything. One point. Woo! It's freezing, I can't feel my hands. I love life. So many people come and say, how come you smile so much? And I'm like, well, it's a long story. But it's very simple at the same time. You see, it's very hard to smile sometimes in life. There are things that happen that you don't know and you don't understand, and you don't know if you're going to get through it. You go through your storms in life and you don't know how long this storm is going to be. And today I want to share with you some principles that I've learned in my life that you can use in yours. Being patient is beautiful. I tell you, it's the hardest thing. But I realize I may not have hands to hold my wife's hand, but when the time comes, I'll be able to hold her heart. I don't need hands to hold her heart. It is scary to know how many girls have eating disorders. It is scary to know how many people are just angry at life because of their situation at home and angry at others. It's scary to know how many people actually feel like they're worth nothing. Every single girl right here, right now, I want you to know that you are beautiful. You are gorgeous just the way you are. And you boys, you're the man. On this DVD, I share my experiences.
So returning back to the last stage of the presentation, I think the message that I was thinking of sharing is very much clear. That the life of the excellence is there if person has got an individual has got a life of purpose, along with the compassion, along with the determination. And the last thing that we need, it would say in Hindi called Utthana. Utthana means collective good, that our energies are utilized for making society a good place. Because destroying something does not need, special skill. Anyone can do it. But building it requires everyone to come together. If somebody is walking on the street and someone comes to stab him, he doesn't need a qualification from the university that, I can stab anyone. You don't need a diploma for that. But to repair the wound, you need to be a qualified doctor. To do something good in society, to leave a meaningful impact, everyone with a good heart should come together. The reason to share the presentation is everyone has got goodness in them. And if everyone with a genuinely good and sacred intention can come together, world would be a very different place. Then we have a life of excellence, whether we see in the life of Gurudev to anyone else. And it's mainly because they lived their life with purpose, to commitment, to dedication to humanity. And that is the only thing that we search and seek for in this presentation of sharing the ancient wisdom practices, but in a very contemporary context. So I hope it was of some meaning and utility to all of you, and thanks for so patiently listening. My pranams goes to everyone, along with the invitation to come to Haridwar in Himalayas whenever you possibly can. Those people who have already been to, they can come again many times, and those who are yet to come, this is an open invitation. You only have to make an arrangement to come to Delhi, and rest is our responsibility. So, Ram and generous invitations.
We do have time for Q&A. You can just let us know when to wrap. Nancy's looking at online questions. So, inside, is there anyone who wants to start with a question about Pandya? Nancy, is there anything going on?
Yes, excuse me. The first one says, you were a doctor in the UK, and now your life is devoted to the betterment of society. Is it possible to share your personal, what inspired you, personal incident, or what inspired you to move from that profession to what you do now?
One of the incidents I already shared when I started to talk. And in addition to that, I think the one thing that really inspired not only me, but most of the people sitting here is the life of Gurudev. Like, he imagined a person who for 42 years of his life lived in solitude. So he was in the Himalayas doing his penance. And remaining 38 years, he wrote more than 3,400 books on every single dimension of humanity, established the entire fraternity that we call as the Gayatri Parivar, and lived his life as best as possible for the betterment of humanity. He took nothing from the society, and with all the 2 pairs of clothes that he had, he worked relentlessly to make society a great place, reminding people how, their good deeds can change the world. And seeing him close, from close, it was the only thing that allowed us to always think only one thing, that how we can do something good to make society a better place to live. So I think from personal experience, that may be the reason of seeing his life from so close and getting inspired from it.
Anyone else have a question? Okay.
I do have another one. So then this next question, currently most of the younger generation is spending time on technology, specifically in North America, and specifically gaming. And most gaming is related to uses of weapons and like guns. And due to this, youth don't have compassion. How do we overcome this type of addiction? What type of program could we add to schooling and also with industries as well as parents?
I partly disagree because I think the most of the people that I have met, most of the youth that I have met, I found that they have got the greatest. Huh. It's actually asking about whether the current sense of violence and aggression in the gaming, how is that affecting the youth, and how can we do something different, more or less along those lines. But I think what I was saying, that I partly disagree because most most of the youth that I have encountered with, I found that they are so compassionate, probably more compassionate than I could ever be. They have got a greater sense of a direction for the humanity. In Hindi, we have got a word called Disha Dhara. Disha means direction, Dhara means the energy. And they go together. That people have got the energy. Only thing is that it needs to be given the right direction. So if there are more and more platforms, like people would turn towards gaming and people would turn towards violence and aggression, only if the energy could not be utilized for the good cause. And there are people there are people who are doing really, really good things in the life. But as the human tendency is that we are more focused towards what is happening negative. There are so many good things happening also. There are people who are living their lives for a good purpose. And if they could be given much more importance, then it becomes different. Second thing is that I think the people who are making those games, they should take the accountability for it. How people are hungry, but if you are unable to feed them the nutritious and the right food, then they would have no choice than actually going towards the wrong direction and eating something unhealthy. So it's the idea is that if people could be given with the same gaming a better direction, and with the same technology a better place to direct their energy, then it would be a different thing altogether. Like we have an animation and visual effect department in our university, and they have created 30 games for the younger kids. And these kids how what they can do different, how they can pay it forward, what kind of things that they have done which would change the society, and all these things. And the same technology could be used to give people the right direction also. Of course, we are talking, it's also based on the technology. So the idea is that you have the tool, but how you make the best use of it. And if we make the best use of the technology that we have, then we can give, no doubt, the sensible direction to everyone.
My mom has joined Gayatri Parivar 32 years ago, so have I, and have taught my son as well. I have taught him to do Gayatri Mala 1 every single day. The question he always asks, or maybe has, is this affecting? Should we do this once, multiple times, 3 times a day? What is the importance of Gayatri Mantra, Gayatri Mala?
I think it may or may not come in the remit of today's presentation, but I will still try to answer. The purpose of the Gayatri Vita is the betterment of human personality, because the word Gayatri, it would mean Gayana Pranana Trayatesa Gayatri, the power that protects us and take us to the righteous path and righteous direction is called Gayatri. So the mantra is designed and destined for that purpose. It is asking for 3 things: purification, illumination, and embellishment. Take me to the right path. The path that, not the one that I desire, but the path that is right for me. So I may be asking for something. That is not the path. The path of the Gayatri is the path that it would allow me to take the right path in the life. To be a good human being and to do something good for humanity is the only message that Gayatri Mantra offers. And if you keep doing it regularly with the same idea that lies underneath it, then it would help you to find the path that is right for you. So that's it.
Then the next question is, you mentioned that humans need goals. How can we continue to focus on the correct goals while we are surrounded by negativity?
That in the fourth slide already, that there is a choice that each of us can make in their life.
Just repeat the question.
Please. Do you want to repeat it, Nancy?
As you mentioned before, humans need goals. How can we continue to focus on the correct goals while surrounded by negativity?
I think we always have been surrounded by the negativity. There has never been a time when negativity was not around us. But among those darker times also came the people who could give the right direction to the humanity. So that kind of choice is always lying with us. Like I said it already in the third or fourth slide, that sharing the story of the scorpion, that saint said that he may have a nature to bite, but I have a nature to save. So we always have the nature to do right thing for humanity. We all should have that choice in our hand. We should not focus upon what is negative there. We should focus upon what is positive there. There are so many things that are positive happening in the world. And if we continue to talk only about the things that are dark and negative and pessimistic, there could never be a positive outcome to it. Among all the darkness, sun is also shining. And I think we should focus upon the sun that is shining rather than the shadow that is coming because of it. I think I wrap it up now.
I would like to introduce Dr. Dale Bryant to offer a word of thanks on our behalf. Dr. Bryant is Professor Emeritus of Religion and Culture here at Renison University College and the University of Waterloo. His intellectual interests, which have led to wide publishing, have ranged over many areas, including historical theology, Anglican studies, interreligious spirituality. He is also the founding director of the Center for Interreligious Spirituality and Dialogue, which over many decades has brought together scholars from a variety of religious tradition for symposia and publication, which have lent itself toward greater understanding between our diverse religious groups within Canada and beyond. I should note he also has a long-standing interest and work in religions on the continent of India, the subcontinent of India. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Bryant to offer thanks.
Quite an experience. It's really wonderful to hear you and to weave your lecture in such a way that you cannot help but being moved by it and moved in a very positive direction. It's a kind of peculiar capacity that many Indians have. You think we're going to move at this level of spirituality or philosophy when you introduce the names of Vivekananda, but then you pull out a common sense kind of response. And I remember once standing in line in Calcutta, and one of the last times I took a group of students, these were older people in India, and the line was quite long, and people started talking about Vivekananda, and the Indian people in line behind us, an 18, 20-year-old guy sort of picked up his talk at the World Parliament of Religions as if it was his friend who knew this and was able to relate the sort of story of Vivekananda and what he taught. And then I had those kinds of experiences a lot within India, that there's a level of cultural self-awareness that permeates that society and amazes the visitor who wonders how in the world, in the midst of this great land, but poor land, can you generate this kind of wisdom? And you've done it. You've done it. And so on behalf of the group, I just want to thank you for this very, very moving lecture. I don't even think I should call it a lecture. This sort of revealing sort of the possibilities of humanity. Thank you very, very much. It gives me great. Gives me great pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Daryl and Chinmay, for gracing us with your words and your presence this afternoon. Thank you to all of you for joining us for this inaugural lecture of our new center, with so many hearts twinned around a vision of a world made more beautiful by our concerted work together toward acts of compassion. Surely, surely, the new day we can imagine will be made real among us. Thank you all, and safe, healthy travels back to your homes tonight. Thank you.